The Galactic Empire's 7th Patrol Fleet drifted through the void of Sector K-7, a region so secure it was deemed beneath notice. Admiral Vorsk's flagship, the Iron Fist, loomed over the lesser vessels like a steel god, its crew lounging in the arrogance of unchallenged dominion. For 3 centuries, no species had dared breach Imperial space without permission. The Empire's borders were law. Then the alarms screamed. A single blip flickered into existence on the tactical display. No transponder, no known drive signature, just a sleek, angular silhouette cutting through the black. The officers froze. This sector was empty. Had to be empty. Yet there it was, gliding toward them like a phantom. Identification. Vorsk barked. None, Admiral, the sensor officer stammered. It's smaller than a cruiser, but energy readings are off the scale. Like nothing in our databases. The bridge erupted into murmurs. Pirates. Rebels. A lost colony ship. Then the magnification feed resolved, and the room went silent. The vessel's design was unmistakable, sharp edges, aggressive lines, no wasted space. A warship. And emblazoned on its hull, faded but legible, were the old symbols of a species the Empire had broken decades ago. Human. Panic slithered through the crew. Humans were supposed to be extinct beyond their home system, their fleets shattered, their defiance crushed. The Empire had made sure of it. Yet here one of their ships was, gliding into the heart of Imperial territory as if the war had never ended. Raise shields. All batteries target that. Vorsk's order died as the human ship pulsed once, a ripple of light flaring across its surface. Then, like a blade through flesh, it sliced into the Iron Fist 𝐒𝐜𝐢 systems. Every screen, every terminal, every officer's private display lit up with the same 3 words, translated into perfect Imperial script. You forgot about US. The transmission cut. The human ship's engines flared, not to flee, but to charge. Weapons hot. Coming straight at them. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire felt fear. The Imperial fleet scrambled into formation, turrets swiveling, fighters screaming from launch bays. Standard doctrine, overwhelming force against any intruder. Yet the human ship didn't behave like an intruder. It moved like a predator. It dodged the first volley without effort, sliding between torpedo spreads as if it had already mapped every trajectory. The Iron Fist's gunners cursed, adjusting targeting algorithms, but the vessel was always one step ahead. Not faster, smarter. Admiral Vorsk clenched his fists. Full barrage. I don't care if we slag the sector, erase it. Energy cannons roared. Space burned. Then the human ship did the impossible. It flickered. One moment it was there, the next it had shifted half a kilometer starboard, the Imperial fire tearing through empty void. The bridge crew gaped. No species had inertial dampeners that precise. No species could. Report. Vorsk snarled. Some kind of microjump, the tech officer whispered. But their drive signature doesn't match any FTL model we have. It's like they're bending local space without a rift. A cold realization settled over the Admiral. This wasn't just a surviving human ship. This was something new. Something worse. Memories surfaced, decades-old briefings, the final days of the human war. The Empire had bombarded Earth, shattered their fleets, left them choking in irradiated ruins. Humanity's tech had been primitive, their tactics desperate. They should have died screaming. Yet here they were. The human vessel suddenly halted, hanging motionless amid the chaos. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then its hull rippled, panels sliding open. Not weapons ports. Antennae. A pulse of energy lanced out, not an attack, but a signal. Every Imperial system in range shuddered as alien code flooded their networks. Firewalls crumbled. Databases bled secrets. The Iron Fist's main display fizzed, then rebooted into an unfamiliar interface. A map appeared. Not of Imperial space. Of human space. Dozens of systems glowed crimson, each tagged with coordinates, fleet strengths, industrial output. Colonies. Shipyards. Armadas. The bridge went dead silent. Vorsk's voice was raw. They weren't hiding. They were building. Before anyone could react, the human ship's engines flared again. Not toward the fleet. Not toward safety. It jumped straight into the heart of the Empire. The Imperial High Command erupted in chaos. Fleet movements were scrambled, border garrisons put on high alert, all because of a single ship. A human ship. The Senate demanded answers, but the admirals had none, just sensor logs and a gnawing terror they couldn't voice. The data breach was worse than the encounter. Classified star charts, fleet deployments, even research archives, everything had been ripped open in seconds. The humans hadn't just stolen secrets, they'd left something behind. A virus, subtle and patient, whispering through secure networks. On the forge world of Deltris 9, automated foundries suddenly rejected Imperial commands. Assembly lines halted, then reconfigured without authorization. The overseers watched in horror as war machines meant to crush rebellions were rebuilt before their eyes. Sleeker, deadlier, unmistakably human in design. Then the transmissions began. Every Imperial world within 50 light-years received the same broadcast. No demands. No declarations of war. Just footage. Earth. Not the broken husk the Empire remembered, but a thriving ecumenopolis, its skies alive with ships, its orbitals bristling with defenses. Then more worlds, Mars, terraformed and green. Alpha Centauri, ringed by Dyson swarms. Colonies where there should have been none. The message was clear, the Empire's victory had been a lie. Panic spread faster than the news. On the streets of the capital, citizens whispered of the humans' return. Some even dared hope. The Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. What if something stronger than fear was coming? Meanwhile, the lone human ship continued its rampage. It struck supply depots, not to destroy, but to hijack. It infiltrated comm hubs, not to disrupt, but to broadcast. Every attack was precise, calculated to maximize chaos, not casualties. Then, as abruptly as it had appeared, the ship vanished from sensors. Not into FTL. Not into stealth. It simply stopped. When the salvage teams finally reached its last known coordinates, they found only wreckage, a self-destructed hull, picked clean of anything useful. Except for one thing. A single data core, pulsing softly. The techs brought it aboard the nearest dreadnought, wary of traps. But when they accessed it, there was no virus, no final insult. Just coordinates. And a timer. The numbers ticked down in perfect sync across every Imperial display. 59 minutes and 59 seconds. 59 minutes and 58 seconds. 59 minutes and 57 seconds. Somewhere beyond the frontier, something was coming. The timer reached 0. Deep space monitoring stations were the first to see them, pinpricks of light erupting across the void, hundreds at first, then thousands. Ships. Human ships. Not the cobbled-together remnants the Empire expected, but sleek, predatory vessels bristling with weapons the Imperial science teams couldn't even classify. They moved in perfect unison, a swarm with singular purpose. No broadcasts, no demands for surrender. Just relentless, surgical advance. Imperial border defenses fired immediately. Particle lances carved through the black, enough firepower to shatter planets. The human fleet didn't evade. They absorbed. Shields flared, shimmering with impossible geometries as they dissipated the attacks like water off stone. Then they returned fire. It wasn't the overwhelming barrage the Empire expected. Single shots. Precise. Each one found a reactor core, a command hub, a shield generator. Systems failed catastrophically across the Imperial line, not from brute force, but from perfect understanding of where to strike. Admiral Vorsk watched the carnage from the bridge of the Iron Fist, his face ashen. This wasn't war. It was dissection. On the surface of occupied worlds, something stranger happened. Human drop pods fell through the atmosphere, not onto military installations, but into city squares. The pods opened to reveal not soldiers, but holograms. Projections of human figures, life-sized and calm. They spoke in perfect Imperial tongues. "We could have burned your worlds," the holograms said. "We chose not to." The projections showed footage, human stealth ships hovering undetected over Imperial cradle worlds, target locks fixed on population centers. The timestamp was from 3 standard years prior. "You were never safe," the holograms continued. "We were always here." Then the kicker, An open broadcast from the lead human flagship. Not a military commander. A child. Human, no more than 12 standard cycles old, dressed in simple clothes. "You tried to kill us all," the child said, voice clear across the light years. "We learned. We grew. And now we're giving you the choice we never got." The human fleet paused their advance. Weapons remained charged, but no new attacks came. On 1,000 Imperial worlds, the same message repeated. Stand down. Or don't. The Empire had spent centuries believing humanity was extinct. Now they faced the terrible truth. Humanity had evolved past the need for vengeance. And that was far more frightening. The Imperial Senate Chamber, once a monument to unshakable power, became an echo chamber of panic. Fleet admirals shouted over one another, their holographic projections flickering with each new disaster report. The Emperor's throne sat empty. His personal dreadnought had been among the first casualties, its wreckage now drifting in high orbit over New Karsk. On the tactical displays, the human advance continued with terrifying efficiency. They bypassed fortified systems entirely, jumping straight to core worlds. Not to bombard them, but to blockade. Every major shipyard, every fuel depot, every Imperial stronghold found itself suddenly cut off, surrounded by silent human vessels that made no move to attack. Then the second wave of transmissions hit. This time it wasn't propaganda. It was data. Terabytes of it. Ship manifests from the last human war. Medical reports from occupied worlds. Security footage the Empire had sealed away centuries ago. The truth spilled across the galaxy in an unstoppable flood. The systematic extermination campaigns, the bioweapons tested on human colonies, the mass graves on 100 conquered worlds. The effect was immediate. 3 Imperial battle groups mutinied within hours. The mining guilds on Xerax severed all ties with the central government. On the streets of 100 worlds, citizens who had never known anything but Imperial rule began tearing down banners. Aboard the last functioning command ship, Admiral Vorsk stared at the tactical display as another sector turned from Imperial gold to human blue. His comm officer approached hesitantly. "Sir, we're being hailed. Direct comm link from the human flagship." The bridge fell silent. Vorsk straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The screen resolved to show a human woman in a simple black uniform, no rank insignia, no decorations. Her eyes held neither hatred nor triumph, just weary resolve. "Admiral," she said, "your Emperor is dead. Your fleets are scattered. But this doesn't have to continue." She transmitted coordinates, a single star system near the old human border. "Meet us there in 3 standard days. Bring whoever still speaks for your people. Or don't, and we'll assume your answer." The transmission cut. Across what remained of Imperial space, a terrible realization dawned. This wasn't conquest. The humans weren't here to rule. They were here to end things. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy held its breath. The coordinates led to a dead system, a lone star surrounded by the skeletal remains of orbital platforms, their structures pockmarked by weapons fire from a war fought generations ago. The humans called it Charon's Crossing. The Imperial archives listed it as 𝐒𝐤 4471, total loss. What waited there wasn't a fleet. It was a monument. Hundreds of massive obelisks floated in precise formation, each one etched with names that stretched into the millions. The light from the dying star cast long shadows across their surfaces, making the engraved letters seem to move like ghosts. The surviving Imperial delegates arrived in a single battered cruiser, its hull still scorched from battle. They expected a tribunal, or perhaps an execution. Instead, they found only silence and the slow drift of memorial stones. A human shuttle approached. No escort. No weapons. When it docked, a single figure emerged. An elderly man in a plain gray uniform, his face lined with scars that no medical technology had erased. He carried no sidearm, only a data pad. "Walk with me," he said. The delegates followed, their boots clanging against the ancient metal of the nearest platform. Up close, they could see the obelisks weren't just memorials, they were archives. Each name had a story. Each story had proof. The old man stopped before the largest stone. "Do you know what this is?" One of the younger delegates, a logistics officer, read the inscription aloud. Asterisk Earth Orbital Defense Grid, final stand. Asterisk, her voice faltered. But the record said there were no survivors. The old man's smile held no warmth. The records lied. He tapped his pad. The obelisks shimmered, projecting holograms that filled the space between them, not of war, but of what came before. Cities alive with laughter. Children playing in parks. Sunlight on oceans that no longer existed. This isn't about revenge, the old man said. It's about memory. We could have glassed every imperial world. Turned your fleets to slag. But that would make us no better than you. He handed the pad to the lead delegate. On it, a single document, a treaty, but unlike any in imperial history. No reparations. No concessions. Just one line, repeated in 100 languages. Never again. The delegates looked up to find the old man gone. In his place, a final hologram flickered to life, a child's drawing of two ships flying side by side, clumsy but hopeful. Across the system, human vessels powered down their weapons. The choice, at last, was theirs. The imperial delegation returned to their fractured empire carrying more than just a treaty. They carried the weight of history unspun. The data core from Charon's crossing spread through what remained of imperial networks like cleansing fire. Every war crime, every atrocity, every lie laid bare for citizens and soldiers alike to witness. Entire battle groups surrendered without firing another shot. Planetary governors, their crimes now public, either stepped down or were dragged from their palaces by their own people. The great imperial propaganda machine, which had spun narratives of human barbarism for centuries, fell silent. Then the human ships began arriving in orbit, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. They didn't land. Didn't send occupation forces. Simply parked in high orbit and waited, their presence alone enough to ensure the transition continued. When riots broke out on Calcis Prime, human observers did nothing, until imperial peacekeepers raised weapons against unarmed protesters. Then a single energy beam lanced down from orbit, precise as a surgeon's scalpel, disabling every weapon in the square without harming a single being. The message was clear. The age of imperial violence was over. On the 100th day, something unexpected happened. A human dropship descended onto the ruins of the imperial palace. From it emerged not soldiers, but engineers. They brought no weapons, only tools, seeds, and medical supplies. When the crowd gathered, a human woman with cybernetic arms stepped forward. "We remember what you built here before the Empire," she said, projecting holograms of ancient temples and libraries that once stood where the palace now lay in ruins. "We brought blueprints." That night, across 1,000 worlds, imperial citizens made the same discovery. Human data packets buried in their networks. Not propaganda. Not demands. Just knowledge, agricultural techniques, medical breakthroughs, clean energy solutions, all freely given. The last transmission from the human fleet came as suddenly as their first appearance. A single sentence, broadcast on all frequencies. Asterisk, the galaxy is wide enough for all of us. Asterisk. Then they were gone. Not vanished. Not hiding. Just elsewhere. Watching. Waiting. And for the first time in living memory, the galaxy breathed free.